Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host and head witch, Miss Solaris BlueRaven, at the helm this evening. I want to give a shout-out to everybody at Revolution Radio, staff, producers, listeners, chat room, and thank everyone for tuning in tonight. We are 100% listener-supported, so if you like what you're listening to, please click on the donate button. We appreciate your support, and thank you for any contribution you can make to this excellent station. I will be taking calls in the second hour, so the number is 347-688-2902 or Freedom Screen on Skype, and you are listening to Studio A. My special guest this evening is Mark Bean. Mark Bean has been involved in the electronics industry for many years. He is the webmaster for Really Cool Science and Virtual Theater. Mark is one of the original pioneers who helped invent virtual reality. 25 years ago, it was called immersive environments. He is the inventor of VST, Virtual Surgical Technologies, surgical simulation technology. In the 80s, Mark was deeply involved with Big Blue's AI, thinking computers that learn. Mark Bean is still developing innovative high-tech devices. Mark is also an accomplished freelance inventor, artist, and computer animator. Mark is self-taught scientist and was granted a Ph.D. in physics and an MSEE based on his contributions, inventions, and life's work. Mark is now living in Nevada. Specializing in many forms of technology and skills such as custom electronics and tailored circuits for almost every use, advanced audio and visual systems, automated controls like smart house, George Jetson-style systems, animatronics and robotics, skilled in team management, experience in research and design, as well as electronic and mechanical fabrication, virtual technologies, simulators, and telepresence, advanced remote control for robotics and or UAV technologies, virtual reality systems that allow non-intrusive rehearsal of surgical procedures, great at building exhibits for museums, demonstration units, and proof of principle prototyping, unique and entertaining educational tools, physical special effects and props for events and the entertainment industries, imaging assistance for reconstructive needs, and computer 3D modeling, animation, custom-made James Bond-style gadgets. And I could really use one of those. I'll have to talk to you about that. His website is reallycoolscience.com, and please welcome Mark to the show. How are you there? Are you there, Mark?
Yes, I am. Hello, Solaris.
Hi, it's great to have you on today. I'm so excited to have you, by the way. I'm such a nerd with science that it just thrills me to have you on, so welcome.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's just great. So you're going to have to make me one of those James Bond gadgets. I'm not sure what you're building these days, but I'll have to talk to you about that off air.
Yeah. Not only do I work with exhibits and displays for science museums, but I also experiment in high-voltage, high-frequency devices like Tesla coils, linear accelerators, particle accelerators, Van de Graaff generators, Wilmshurst generators, all these kind of devices that were built over 100 years ago. Because I've always been fascinated about how things start, how everything came to be the way it is technically, especially when it comes to electricity. And that's what got me interested in a gentleman by the name of Nikola Tesla. Mm-hmm. And it started with me hearing rumors about the death ray, and that Tesla built this device at Wardenclyffe, New York, that leveled many thousands of square feet of land in Tunguska, Siberia in 1908. And that led into even more spectacular investigation than what I started with. One, Tesla had nothing to do with the explosion that happened in Tunguska, simply because he didn't have the means to facilitate such a large explosion. It was also mentioned that Tesla was involved in the Philadelphia experiment, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but in 1943, it was believed that the ship called the USS Eldridge was made invisible not only to radar, but it was visibly gone. Mm-hmm. And Tesla wasn't directly involved, because Tesla had already been dead for 6 months when they conducted the experiments in late November of 1943. And but Tesla was indirectly involved because they used his induction coils. And what I can tell you about the experiment in Philadelphia, if you're interested in hearing that part.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
There were induction coils that made, I guess I should explain how a microwave oven works before I should go into the Philadelphia experiment.
Okay.
A microwave oven works by using magnetron transformers. And these magnetron transformers, what they do is they excite a product by the subatomic particles by using electrons produced by the magnetron transformer that makes the molecules move faster. And anytime you have faster moving molecules, you have heat. It goes hand in hand. If I take a balloon, I blew it up halfway, and I stuck it out in the sun for a couple hours, or even an hour, depending on how hot it is, the balloon would be fully expanded, almost ready to pop. And it's not because more air got into the balloon, it's because of the heat excited the electrons and molecules inside the balloon and made it expand. Because when you have heat, you have expansion as well. And imagine if you could excite the kinetic rate of molecules. In other words, make molecules move faster than light could be reflected off of, and do it so quickly that it didn't have a chance to get hot. You could make something become invisible because light wouldn't have a chance to bounce off of it. You would become what they call hyperspace, and you wouldn't be there. And it also explains rumors in the Philadelphia experiment of when they shut down the engines, there were people running through the ship and jumping down the stairs, and when the engines shut off, they merged, the bodies merged with the hull of the ship. And that's simply because the molecules were moving faster than our speed of time. And we got caught in between both places at the same time. So there were bodies that were caught in the hull of the ship when we reintegrated, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a fascinating story. It's incredible. So literally, go ahead.
Here's the kicker. 6 months after the Philadelphia experiment was shut down, there was a daughter company. See, Raytheon and EG&G provided all of the equipment for those experiments. Now, 6 months afterwards, after the Philadelphia experiment was conducted, they developed a daughter commercial company called Amana. And Amana produced the very first microwave oven.
Great.
And it ran off of 440 volts, and it weighed 800 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you trace the money and if you trace the technology, you can, pick up the breadcrumbs and piece together the puzzle.
Exactly. So in the Philadelphia experiment, it didn't give the illusion of actually vanishing. It actually did physically vanish?
Yes.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, the molecules moved so fast that they no longer existed. They were in the same place in the same time, but not the same speed.
Interesting. So it is all about vibration and speed, isn't it, insofar as teleportation perhaps or phase shifting?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Everything is frequency and the kinetic rate of a molecule. When I say kinetic rate, that means the speed at which a molecule or a subatomic particle moves.
That makes sense. Yeah. That's really fascinating. Really is. Huh. So, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to ask, I have so many things on my mind I want to ask you, but if you feel guided to just run with energy and communicate, just go for it. But I was going to ask you, how did you get involved, a little bit about the virtual reality? I just wanted to get more information on that one.
Well, I had started with virtual reality by playing computer games in what they call FPS, our first-person shooter game. And what that means is that when you're playing a game on the computer, you're looking through the eyes of the person that you're portraying in the computer. And what I did was I took it a step beyond. It was right when LCD technology came out, and that was a form of television that we still use now that led to flat screen, lightweight television monitors. And I used two of those, so I had binocular vision, made a head strap, and then I made a software application that mimicked the mouse movements of a mouse. And so when you moved your head, it was the same thing as moving the mouse. And of course, it was like taking your eyes out of your head and putting them in the computer world. And then if I strobed them at different speeds, I gave the illumination or the illusion of binocular vision, of stereoscopic vision. So it gave a sense of depth, and just by moving your head, you're turning your head in the computer world left and right and up and down. And it's at the time I called it immersive environments. And then there was a science fiction writer out of San Francisco who coined the term virtual reality.
And you were involved in that movie Lawnmower Man, right?
Yes.
Okay, what were you doing? How were you involved in that?
I made most of the hardware. There was a biosphere that they used, which was a sphere within a sphere, and you strapped yourself in, and instead of moving just your head, you were moving your entire body on a XYZ axis. So your whole body, you could be in a flight simulator, and when you move your entire body, it's like the airplane's moving on a 360-degree axis.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so from that step on, so you're right there on that level. What about military contracts? Insofar as obviously there's a way to integrate this technology without the headset or the gear. So I'm wondering, do you know anything about that?
Oh, yes. It's what led to how we control some of the unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAV. Excuse me.
Okay. Yeah, can you elaborate on that a little bit? I'm just curious.
Well, it's just like I said, when you turn your head left and right, you're moving the camera in the UAV left and right, up and down, while the plane itself, the unmanned aerial vehicle, is flying straight. You're looking around to different targets or points of interest, and then you can relay that information to the people on the ground or whoever you're communicating with of possible bogeys or points of interest on the ground.
Right. Yeah, it's a fascinating technology, and I would discuss this a little bit with you, how I had been inducted in 2004 with a synthetic telepathy communication system, which basically is like a virtual reality on some levels, except I don't use a headset. I don't need a headset. It's a signal. So, yeah, so I'm sure you're familiar with that, maybe, a little bit?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well,
yeah, now they're using parts of the inner eardrum, and you just put a little earplug in, and and it basically taps in on our natural biological balance system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Instead of a 2-inch by 3-inch device that goes on the back of the skull.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the head strap of the HDMI,
Mm-hmm.
or the HMD, the head-mounted display.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. And then, of course, there's the real black budget programs that I'm sure you're probably familiar with to some extent. But the whole aspect of the technology is very intriguing if it's used in a positive way. It can be very beneficial if it's used in a positive way. It's the same thing with Tesla. He had some wonderful devices if they use it correctly and not use it for a destructive purpose. So if we could, I wanted to talk a little bit about Tesla insofar as what was your impression of the zero-point technology? How do you describe that?
Well, zero-point energy, basically by definition, means how much energy is left in a piece of space or matter at absolute freezing. And the answer is zero. That there shouldn't be, at absolute freezing, when I was talking about the kinetic energy before,
Mm-hmm.
that how fast the particles move.
Right.
Well, at absolute freezing, those particles shouldn't be moving at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a buzzword, zero-point energy. And the answer is zero. There shouldn't be any energy. And there's a lot of people claiming that they've found zero-point energy in devices.
Mm-hmm.
And but there's no such thing as free energy. And what I mean by that is there's always a cost. If I'm getting voltage from somewhere, that means that I'm getting amperage too.
Mm-hmm.
And the more voltage I'm taking, the more amperage I'm taking. So if I'm getting, let's say, 110 volts of electricity, that means I'm taking amperage as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that equation is volts times amps equals wattage.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see your blow dryer uses 1,800 watts, you would divide 1,800 by 110, and that would tell you how many amps that is.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And can I ask you, is 0 point, would it have an association with black hole singularity?
That's hard to explain. I would say that there is, at a singularity point, there is pure energy because you have pure mass.
Mm-hmm.
You one teaspoon of matter in the center of a black hole would weigh 300 billion trillion tons.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever you have a lot of mass, you have a lot of energy. Whenever you have a lot of energy, you have a lot of mass. It's a give and take situation.
Mm-hmm. And doesn't
and that's the equation of E equals mc squared.
Right.
Energy equals mass squared.
Right. Yeah, Einstein, right? That's really interesting to me. I've always been really interested in black hole technology or black holes in general. Are you familiar with any type of technology that can actually simulate a black hole and create one?
Yes, the Very Large Hadron Collider in Geneva, in Switzerland.
That's what I thought. I just needed it confirmed. Can you elaborate on it as well?
Well, they have produced a miniature black hole, and it lasted less than a picosecond. And it was very small, and it wasn't going to swallow the planet or anything. And it collapsed faster than we could even detect most of its effects.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Have you toured that facility at all? Have you been over there?
No, I've never been there.
Okay, it's very interesting.
But I've been to CERN outside of Chicago.
Yeah. Okay. What was your impression of that? Do you think they have control over what they're doing?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. So that's good to know.
They really got it together. Unfortunately, they didn't get the funding that Switzerland got, and that's why they were allowed to, or not allowed. That's how they were able to accomplish finding that black hole. What they were trying to do was find the God particle.
Right.
And what that is it's the Higgs boson material. And what that means is whenever you have energy, you have mass. And like I mentioned before, or whenever you have mass, you have energy. But there's something that happens that we don't understand, and that is what takes energy and what makes that energy transmute into matter. In other words, what makes matter matter? There's something that occurs in our physical universe that triggers a phenomena that takes energy and makes it matter. And we haven't figured that out. But once we have, that means we could do anything. Instant teleportation. We're talking about like beam me up, Scotty. It opens the door to all sorts of different technologies that are some of which are unimaginable at this point.
What about the photons? Would photons be a contributing factor to that?
Photons is actually a light particle or wave, depending on how you observe it. See, there's another thing that happens in the sub-quantum world is that there's a lot of things that occur and make sense in the subatomic world, which we call quantum mechanics, that don't actually work out in the bigger world. You know, and when we're talking about universal or astrophysics. And
you there?
Yeah, I was having a problem with my phone here.
Okay, you all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Where were we?
We were talking about photons and describing.
Oh, we were talking about photons.
Yeah.
Yes. And photon is a particle of light, and or it could be a wave. And I was talking about the difference between quantum mechanics and regular science or science of the larger world, and that some things make perfectly good sense if you put them in quantum mechanic theory, but they don't work out when we try to make it apply to the bigger. And that's like when we took, this was about 100 years ago, we did what they call the two-slit experiment, where we took a photon and we had a sheet of metal with two little slits in it, and then we had a photographic plate on the other side of the two slits. And when we shot that proton, or the photon, at the sheet of metal, it went through both the slits at the same time. But when we observed it, it went through only one slit. So just by merely observing the act, we have forced this phenomena to exist in a world just by looking at it.
So it's based on the perception of the observer?
Yeah, just by looking, just by observing, we have forced something into a certain spectrum of reality.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, for certain. That's quite interesting. Would you say that these particles are intelligent in design? They have a consciousness to them, or what is your take on that?
I think that I think that there's a balance. I think that everything has, in nature, has a counterbarrier or balance. There's matter, there's antimatter, there's energy, there's dark energy, there's positron and electron, and so on. So if there's gravity, then there must be an anti-gravity. Mm-hmm. And most importantly, everything matters and everything is connected. And nature always finds equilibrium. Mm-hmm. Therefore, it's the nature of nature for this to be possible.
Right. That makes perfect sense. And while we're on the subject of anti-gravity, why don't we just talk about that a little bit? Now, have you been working with anti-gravity, or?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
For more than 20 years. And I had been working with certain kinds of energy, and there's many kinds of energy. It goes from color to sound to electrical energy, and there's many different kinds of electrical energy. There's what we call static electricity, which is a misnomer. There's no such thing as static electricity, because static means stationary, non-movement, and there's no such thing as non-movement when it comes to energy. Everything's in motion. Mm-hmm. And then there's electrical energy like AC, alternating current, which what we use and what Tesla had discovered was that if you alternate the pattern or polarity of electricity from positive to negative, and you do that, like, let's say 60 cycles a second. That's what we use nowadays in our electrical outlets. Mm-hmm. That's 60 cycles an outlet, or 60 cycles a second, or what they call hertz. Mm-hmm. Now, what that means is the energy is switching from positive to negative 60 times a second, or Hertzian waves. And he discovered that using DC electricity, which is direct current, which is like what you use in your flashlight and batteries, that's all direct current. Now, that flows in one direction and can only be used over short distances, because forcing electrons through a conductor, like copper, which is what most of our wire is made of, the electrons want to run through the copper, and after 50 feet or so, that there's so much resistance in the wire, it gets hot, and it actually chokes the flow of energy that goes through that conductor. And in some cases, it'll get hot enough to catch on fire. And so you would have to make attenuation stations like every 100 feet if you were to wire like downtown New York City when Thomas Edison was working with direct current. Mm-hmm. And Tesla came to New York and tried to approach Edison with the idea of using alternating current, and Edison wouldn't have anything to do with it. Mm-hmm. Well, Tesla prevailed, and by alternating the current and making it oscillate, using AC, alternating current, it not only can travel for great distances, but it drops very little or no power at all, because the frequency of the wires of the polarity switching positive to negative 60 times a second, because it's a higher frequency, it doesn't want to push its way through the conductor. It wants to ride on the surface of the conductor. Mm-hmm. And that's why, like on my website, I got a picture of me with 3 million volts of electricity going through my body and out my fingertips. Cool. And the reason why is I stepped up frequency of the electricity to 400,000 cycles a second. So the energy wants to ride over the surface of my body, being the conductor, rather than to penetrate it.
That's pretty
And
amazing.
also, I'm isolated or insulated from ground. And see, if I was close to ground, then the electricity, regardless of the frequency, would find the shortest, closest path to ground and go right through my bone marrow and come out my foot and hit the ground, and it, of course it would cross my heart and I'd be electrocuted.
Right. And do you have a book out right now?
Yes, I do.
Okay, yeah, why don't you let everybody know what your book is and where it's available, because I'm sure they'd be interested in reading it.
Okay, it's, let me see here. It's everything you wanted to know about Tesla coils. It's Understanding Tesla Coils and Beyond.
Nice. And is that actually live, that book, right now? It's out?
Yes.
Okay.
It's on Amazon.com or ini.com.
Excellent. Yeah, that's fascinating. And let's just backtrack a little bit. So what are you actually working on right now? You were talking to me about some Tesla coils you were working with. Is that the same thing in the picture?
Yes. I'm working on Tesla coils and what they call a magnifying transformer. And a magnifying transformer has an additional secondary winding that gives it an additional oomph. And instead of getting like 4 million volts out of the coil output, I would get closer to 9 or 10,000 volts out of it. Or I'm sorry, millions of volts out of it. And with very little drop in current at all.
Yeah, I bet your neighbors like you, huh?
Yeah, it's always fun at Halloween at my house.
I bet. I wish I was over there. Yeah, I was going to ask you, so I know you're working with patients right now, and I don't know how much you can go into it or not, but I know you're working on healing through vibration, is that correct?
Yes, I am. I'm working, I've made a device called the carcinotron, and what I did was I found the resonant frequency that holds together the molecular structure of certain kinds of cancer. And when I made my oscillating machine, which is a severely modified Tesla coil, when I tuned it, the transmitter and the receiver to that frequency, anything in between the transmitter and the receiver that's at that frequency will be destroyed at the subatomic level. And then I give it a couple days in between treatments for the body's natural immunity system to say, oh, you don't belong there, let's take out the trash.
Awesome. That's
so
incredible.
it's a strategic, specific, non-intrusive surgical strike on what's bothering you. And
it sounds like you've had success,
100%
right?
success. Yeah, 100% success right now.
That's incredible. I have to applaud you for that. And I hope that you continue to do that work. It sounds like it's critical. I mean, and I think you mentioned a little bit that the not pharmaceuticals, but the health industry actually wouldn't be very happy with something like that. Because
no.
Yeah.
No, I had a meeting with a very powerful medical association, and their attorneys met me out in the hall and asked me if I could dumb it down. It was the first thing they said. Can I dumb it down? Can I make it so we can do lots of incremental treatments on a patient? And I said, why? And he said, well, there's no money in cures.
Yep, that sounds about right, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's about as far as I can go with it.
No, that's okay.
As far as what I've said.
Right. No, I understand, and I just think what you're doing is applaudable. I mean, I just, I find you to be very gifted and unique, and I hope you continue to do the work you're doing. So there's a reason you're here on the planet, obviously. But, yeah. So how long are the sessions when you work on someone? How many minutes of that type of a transmission do they tolerate?
Well, I give them 3 treatments at 30 seconds apiece.
Wow, that's short.
And then I skip a day, maybe two, and it depends on how, what stage they're at. You know, if they're at stage 4, I have to really treat the patient with kid gloves because they already have, you know, 1.5 feet in the brain.
Right. And have you had success with people who have advanced cancer?
Yeah, I'm working on a gentleman right now who's stage 4, and I had the patient before him was a stage 4, and he's fine now. He had a tumor in his chest that was the size of a baseball, and it was pressing against his lung and his heart. And after 2 months, it became the size of a pea, and now it's completely undetectable.
Wow. That's amazing. You don't hear about this, do you, on mainstream, do you?
Oh, no.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
No.
This is what
No.
people need to hear. People need to understand that this technology exists. And, you know, if there's anything we can do to help promote that, let me know, because it's critical. There's so many people who are sick because they shouldn't be sick, and then they're masking it through the pharmaceutical companies, making them worse. So I'm a firm believer in vibration, and I'm a firm believer that healing starts with vibrational and frequency. So I applaud you for what you're doing once again. I can't thank you enough, Mark, for being on tonight. You know, there's so many things I want to talk about with you, and it's just really incredible. So what's something else I was going to mention really quick?
Good to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. It really is. Gosh darn it. Okay, let's talk about a little bit. What did you do at Los Alamos? I don't know if you can elaborate at all. Can you say anything?
Yeah, I was making alpha probes that were they're little test strips that detect alpha radiation, and it's a safety device. So if that tag, the wire inside the tag snaps, that means that area or section of Los Alamos should be shut down.
Oh, wow. That's pretty heavy duty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's see, the other thing we were talking about that we didn't finish was, anti-gravity.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, about 25 years ago, I was working with static electricity at 50,000 volts in a very unique configuration. And I found that by hooking up electricity to this metallic conductor, I could make it move without touching it. And then I had 2 of them, and they were about 30 feet away from each other. And I noticed that when I made an electrical arc come off of one of the discs, the other disc 30 feet away would move at the same time. It was just inverted. And that made me think that what was happening was a form of electrogravitics is what I call it. It turns out that I started off with an oblique sphere. That means that it was a round metal ball that was slightly squished, and that when I put my discharge terminal, in other words, the electrical lead off the high voltage device, if I put it close to the equatorial line of that sphere, it would make the sphere move, jump. And then I found that by making it more squished, more tailorable, hold on there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You're fine.
Yeah, that it would make the effect more pronounced. And so it turned out that I refined the shape to be disc-shaped, like a flying saucer disc. And then I started doing some research into flying saucers, and it seemed that all the flying saucers that I looked at had three common elements. They had a parabolic, like a bowl or a saucer that was upside down. Mm-hmm. They had a flat surface underneath, and they had what looked like a cockpit on top. And most of them had a little dipole or an antenna on the top. And I found that that dome on top, or what appeared to be the cockpit, wasn't the cockpit at all. That was an opposite charge terminal, and that there was always some kind of decorative ring that separated the dome from the main body of the disk. Mm-hmm. And those rings weren't decorative at all. They were a dielectric. A dielectric means it's an electrical insulator between positive and negative. And the main body of the disk is negatively charged. So when I charged the top part of it positively and the main body of the disk negatively, it would make the whole disk lift up and move around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Excellent.
I don't know if I explained that.
Yeah, you did. I was going to ask you what planet you were from. You're not from here.
Yep.
That's awesome. Now, while we're on that topic, what is your impression of life elsewhere insofar as other species of off-world intelligence?
Well, I think that it's a mathematical impossibility for us to be the only intelligent life form just in our galaxy alone. Mm-hmm. And we have, hundreds of billions of stars in our galaxy alone. And we have more galaxies in our universe than we have grains of sand in all the beaches of the entire planet.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
So it's an impossibility. And we've only been here, technically for a couple hundred years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think when it comes to extraterrestrial life, regardless of what your beliefs are, the truth is everything that we are made of, everything we perceive to be reality, every particle, every atom, every molecule, and so on, came from out there. Mm-hmm. In fact, that includes this planet. Therefore, the building blocks of life are universal and resilient and far more creative than our combined imaginations could ever envision. Mm-hmm. I mean, simply look at the diversity of life on this planet alone. Humans have been here only, a short period of time, and technically even shorter amount of time. Mm-hmm. Humans functions within the speed of human thought, utilizing a small bandwidth of with very limited senses. Mm-hmm. And these senses are often inadequate recorders of the event. And even with the aid of past and present technology, there is so much more all around us everywhere. And it's of my opinion that humans are regarded by others to be the Jerry Springer show of this galaxy and perhaps the entire universe. And until we learn to behave and truly care for each other, and most importantly, disregard behaviors such as cruelty and greed, the human general public will not be given disclosure nor access until further development.
I totally agree with you. Well said.
It would be like inviting a self-inviting, annoying, larcenous, and violent guest that won't leave.
Exactly. Yeah.
However, there's hope,
Mm-hmm.
So I just ask everybody to do their part to evolve.
I agree. Well said. Well said, Mark. So what do you think about this, the black budget programs? I mean, if they have the type of technology that can already travel off-world, what do you think's going on there in those sectors? Are they able to navigate, or is that just propaganda?
Well, I think that I think that we need these black projects. I don't think that we need them to the degree that we're spending. And I understand that by endowing the public with disclosure, that is also revealing all of our secrets to our enemies. And that's where it comes into we really need to behave and treat each other a little bit better, a lot better,
I agree. And the one thing that my biggest concern is right now, actually being a test pilot for some of the covert technology, is literally that it's being misused and abused. And I think that's halting our evolution, even though it seems like they're trying to accelerate with technology. It's still being weaponized, and that's almost putting us in a spiral to nowhere. So what's your take on that?
Yeah. I think you hit it right on the head. A spiral to nowhere. It's where are we going with all of this?
Right.
What's the ends to the means? Where is it all headed to? Is there a plan? And if so, who's leading the plan? And I think that we've been visited. I think we've probably been manipulated at the genetic level many times. And I think that there's been several civilizations that have come and gone on this planet. And we got to get past this point of self-destructiveness. I
agree. Yeah, it's basically, and I've mentioned this before, but it's through, in my opinion, it's through higher consciousness and kind of deprogramming from the from all the false programming that people have been subjected to since the beginning of their birth. So, that's just my own impression of what they need to do is to tune in. I was going to ask you, have you worked with radio telescopes at all?
No.
Okay.
No, I haven't.
Curious. I thought I'd ask you about that. And also go ahead.
Tesla had invented by accident the first radio telescope. And this is part of what really hurt Tesla more than it helped him when he announced that he received radio messages from Mars. What he did was he did receive intelligent radio signals from Mars, but it was the radio noise generated by the planet.
That's interesting.
And every planet, every mass has an electrical field.
Right.
Almost everyone has an electrical field, and those electrical fields pulsate or oscillate at specific frequencies, and some appear to be sensible. They appear to have a pattern, that could be considered intelligent, and so Tesla went to the news and told the news he received signals from Mars, and it wasn't intelligent signals, it was just planetary noise.
Well, that's pretty interesting, and you have to ask yourself, what's, what do they say, clear the noise, and then there's a signal behind there somewhere. So I'm wondering, actually, was it really noise? Maybe it was something else. If you guys are trying to call in, you're going to have to call in the second hour, just so you know. I know somebody's just tried to call. Call me in a few more minutes. But, sorry. But anyways, so insofar as that, do you really think that was a foolish statement? Because I don't see it as foolish at all if he was establishing some kind of a communication. Maybe we're just not reading the language right. Maybe there is something going on between the spaces of that vibration or that radio signal.
Well, there, in that case, that was radio noise from the planet. It wasn't intelligent unless you consider the planetary systems as being intelligent themselves. And it could very well be that planets are alive to some extent.
Right.
And that they could be molecules in someone else's brain that's, 1 billion times larger than we are.
Right. Exactly. Well, do you think they could speak a machine language, perhaps?
It
that
could
we wouldn't be able to detect or understand because of where we're at as a civilization?
I mean, it could be that the universe has its own binary language, or a language that's beyond binary. Anything's possible. And if you can think it, it's already been done to some extent.
I agree with that.
Because, there's, you can think that every thought that you've ever thought, 10,000 people have already thought of it. At least 10,000 people have already thought of it at one time or another.
Right.
That's like saying that you have breathed in an air molecule from Mozart. You have. At one time, you have. Everybody has. The energy and particles and that, they don't die. They just change from one state to another.
Very true. That's well said. Yeah, I could talk to you for hours about all this information. It's just blowing me away. I'm sure it's blowing the listeners away, too.
It blows me away, too. It's like every few years I reach a cerebral plateau of understanding, and my mental peripheral widens, and then I'm dwarfed by the magnitude of the next horizon. You
definitely see the bigger picture, and I think people need to stop and get away from the drama of the linear thinking and just take a deep breath and look beyond the realms and start seeing what you see, because it really, once you start talking about this information, it just makes everything so simple. I mean, on so many different levels. It's complex, yet it's simple. It's very easy.
Yeah.
Well, we're heading for a break right now. We'll be right back with Ravenstar's Witching Hour. My special guest is Mark Bean. I'll be taking calls in the second hour, guys.
Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
Everyone pretends. We all make believe.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. So run. Run! You tell them I'm coming! And hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
We know where you are at all times. That's our business.
Be here at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Thursday, so you don't miss a single minute of Changing Reality with the Hijacker, the gunslinger approach to bring you to the edge. Right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps.
Danger, Will Robinson, danger.
Don't unlock doors you're not prepared to go through.
I'm so afraid of how powerful this is.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Most guys freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
The body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting to danger. Unafraid. Right here, where information information never sleeps. Revolution Radio. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or a computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. Revolution Radio. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome back, everybody. Ravenstar's Witching Hour. My special guest tonight is Mark Bean, and I am taking calls the second hour. If you'd like to call in, the number is 347-688-2902 or Freedom Screen on Skype. And Mark, you there?
Yes, I am.
All right. And I have a question for you. Are you tracked by spooks a lot? It sounds like you probably are, huh?
Yes, the first couple of years I was, and I learned to live low and kind of take things easy.
Yeah? Are you there?
Yeah.
Well, I would say that with your abilities and the fact that you're very advanced, I mean, I've looked at your the type of things you've worked on is just amazing to me. So I would imagine that they kind of keep tabs on you on and off. But isn't it amazing how they try to take people's patents? And it seems to me like they're really trying to shut down anyone who has a mind and is an inventor. You know, so what's your take on all that?
Well, we've already heard, all of us have heard about, engines that get 100 miles to a gallon of gas, and, solar-powered vehicles and solar-powered homes that, you don't need a whole rooftop full of solar panels to run your home. Mm-hmm. I wrote a book on building your own a solar system for pennies on the dollar, and that was a nightmare.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it didn't go anywhere, and I had it on Amazon, and I didn't sell one copy.
Wow.
And it was really amazing to me.
Yeah, is it still on there now?
It makes me. No, I took it off a couple years ago. And as far as things like the disc is concerned, I did several demonstrations, and nobody seemed to care. I did the worst thing I did was I did a demonstration for a UFO conference down in Laughlin, and nobody seemed to care because it wasn't a little gray that made it. That made this disc fly across a stage, Mm-hmm. And I was just really disappointed that that something so fantastic, was basically ignored because it wasn't the answer they were looking for.
Yeah, that's too bad. I don't think people realize what's in front of them. It's hidden in plain sight, and they just don't see it. A lot of people don't. Anyway, that's the mainstream. And then even with the UFO community, you have to pick and choose because there's a lot of disinformation there, of course. So for people to project everything with a little gray, I don't get that at all. Really don't. Plus, we have a celestial background. Our DNA, like you said before, we're a miniature universe inside. So we come from the universe. So our cells and atoms are in harmonic with that, and I don't know what they're looking for. We are that ancestry. We are those species. We're just here.
Yep. As a matter of fact, speaking of that, I don't know why, but it seems to be that the strangest things in life seem to gravitate towards me.
Naturally.
And one of those things is the Star Child Project. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Yeah.
But it was a hybrid. It's 60% unknown DNA and 40% human DNA, and it looks like a gray. It was a skull that was found about 70 years ago, and we had all this research done on it, and it's just nobody seems to care. I did the first mitochondrial and nuclear DNA testing, and had CT scans of it, computer-aided tomography, and there's a website on it with every possible test that you can imagine that was done on it. It's starchildproject.com, and it's just nobody seems to care.
Wow, is nobody meaning just the mainstream?
Yeah, mainstream. There was a guy in Las Vegas who's on Channel 8, a reporter named George Knapp. He did a 4-part story, and the National Geographic channel, they did a 3-part story on it. That was it.
Well, I like George Knapp. Yeah, he's coast-to-coast guy.
Yeah. Oh, and I got to give props to a gentleman named Thomas Townsend Brown. I found out later, about 5 years later, after I conducted my experiments and determined that the best shape to make that UFO move, the disc, it was already done. It was done in the 30s and 40s by a guy named Thomas Townsend Brown. And in 1947, he did an experiment on a 1-meter disc for the Air Force, and he made the disc lift up, move around 35 miles an hour, and it instantly went classified under Project Winterhaven.
There you go. So basically, go ahead.
All this can be looked up.
Right.
It's all factual data.
Yeah. So basically, all the good stuff and the stuff that you're working on is obviously in the black budget. It's underground. It's pretty much hidden, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Some of it. I mean, with the internet, it's such a hodgepodge. You really have to look hard. It's like panning for gold. You got to sift through a bunch of crap to find a couple nuggets of truth.
Totally. Yeah, I was going to ask you, so with these sightings that everybody's having, with anomalies, whatever you want to call them, UFOs, would you say that those are our craft in the covert black budget areas, or would you say they're off-world?
I wouldn't know the percentage, but I would say that a good 80% of the reports are people starving for attention, and that a good percentage is truly extraterrestrial, and a good percentage is governments, with reverse engineered craft or craft that is new, that we just came up with.
Right. Yeah, they seem to be doing a lot of the reverse engineering, and they've been doing that for a long time, as we all know. So, what's your take on don't know if we did talk about artificial intelligence a little bit, but what is your impression of artificial intelligence in general?
I think that it could be very dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we need to really watch what we give control to as far as automated systems.
Right.
And let's just say I wouldn't give nuclear power. I wouldn't hand that over to a fully autonomous system.
Mm-hmm.
Because what it may think is right could be the extermination of us all.
I totally agree. And are you familiar with transhumanism?
No.
Okay, yeah, that's the man merging with machine. That's an agenda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, that's another realm also with the psychotronic programming and the things that I actually, have been involved in with as a quote-unquote test pilot and lab rat. But it's basically that same thing. It's the downward spiral where there's control and manipulation to a point where the free will of the individual is kind of compromised, shall we say. So I think that there is a dark side to this world and so far as the technology goes. And I think by approaching it and addressing it, even though we, try to hit as many people as we can with the information, that we can change that. And hopefully they won't become victimized by this.
Yeah, and it's like someone was asking me about cloning. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, you can clone a person using stem cells and that, but you can't clone their brain and their personality, because their brain and the personality was wired as they grew up through the experiences that they encountered and in the experiences that they endured and enjoyed and, were frightened by and were excited by, and that you can't copy that. That's a lived-in experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like an old couch.
Right.
you just can't put the same indentations in a new couch than you could an old one.
Very true. And also the soul, the spirit, you can't replicate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they could try to create some kind of an artificial design, but the soul and the spirit is a unique form. So,
yeah, even if you copied the same exact memories, the nuances, the sights, smells, the emotions of the time, that's something that has to be experienced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I know they have brain templates, and I know they do the mapping of the brainwave activity to try to create that, but I know it's also a version. Like you say, it's just a copy. It's not the real McCoy. So they're very devious, and I'm sure you're aware that there's some devious things going on right now in this world and in the underground with these black budget programs. So hopefully we can get a grip on that and put it in the right direction for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about, I don't want to say in theory, but insofar as extraterrestrial craft go, what do you think their navigation system is or propulsion system is?
I believe that it is an electrogravitic system. I think that it uses dark matter, and I think that it uses mind control navigation. So you would think about something and its manifest destination.
Right. Are you familiar with David Adair?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know him well?
No.
Okay, because I know he mentioned something about a symbiotic relationship between the craft and the operator, so to speak, for navigating spaceships or UFOs. So
yeah, and I think that space and time are woven together.
Right.
And as far as here's a real good subject: time. Mm-hmm. Scientists currently have theories which would make time travel possible. Mm-hmm. However, they presently do not have the technical and or energy requirements to accomplish such a thing. Keeping this in mind, I reason that eventually time travel will be possible, thus meaning that time travel has always been possible. In other words, once we do it, we've always been doing it. Mm-hmm. And the real mind bender is, how would we even know if something had changed in the past, it would alter everything, including the memory cells in our brain, the axons and dendrites.
Right. So what about perception of reality? Now, riddle me this. Now, this is my own take on time. Time to me is a benchmark for measuring. So to me, it doesn't really exist. I work out of time and consciousness. So if we experience life, or we experience an event based on our perception of reality, say there are two people in a room, and each one witnesses a situation differently based on their perception of reality. So wouldn't you think that somehow the time doesn't exist, that it's just about consciousness and more of an imprint of energy?
It's a tough one. It's a real mind bender, and there's that fringes on the verge of due locality and multiple parallel universes, multiverses, and stuff like that. And I find it very hard to consume that there are multiverses just for me or just for you. And it just seems like it'd be an awful waste of energy and time and space.
Right. Yeah, well, I see it as a multiverse that we're all connected to. I don't see it as a singular thing, for each person. I see it more as it's just a mass consciousness, intelligent energy that we're all connected to as an extension. But I find it very interesting nonetheless. But so do you see it as, say all the tampering they're doing with this type of programming, or say they're misusing technology. So that's putting a rift in the continuum to a point where it's going to affect other timelines and the illusion of time, probably in a negative fashion. Would you suspect that or no?
Well, see, just by thinking of something, you've already forced it into a reality.
Right.
It now physically exists.
Yeah, I should cancel clear.
Yeah, it already physically exists. It's in your brain, in a memory cell, but you took something from the etheric and you made it physically exist where it wasn't there anymore. It was a nothingness. And this is part of like that Higgs boson, the God particle. You've taken something with the power of your mind and you've made it physically exist. Even though it's just a thought, it physically exists.
Right. That makes so much sense. Yeah, we manifest at will our own reality. I know that much, but to what degree does that manifestation really kind of connect in with other realities? That's what I'm wondering. But
and how far can you take that thought?
Right. Yeah.
Because there's people that'll get an idea and they'll follow it all the way through to where it now is a manifested destiny.
Right. Yeah. That's what makes me wonder about all these collectives, because we have a lot what I call false collectives that are just focused on wrong data. So it seems like it'd be a lot of scrambled information out there in the ethers.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Looney Tunes out there too.
Right.
So
how do you clear it? I mean, how would you clear it as a scientist? What would you do? Would you just kind of throw a vibration or a frequency transmission with a Tesla ray to kind of clear it all out and neutralize it?
I think it would take the mass, like the power of prayer.
Right.
I think it would take a mass collective for a certain idea to come into fruition.
That makes perfect sense.
And I think that could be how we made God exist, or Jesus, or whatever deity you believe in, that by so many people believing so strongly in such a thing that you've made it exist.
I agree. Yeah, very true. Well, when we get back to we manifest at will our own reality, it is given to you according to your beliefs. And I think that is very true on so many different levels. What's your take on a frequency fence? Do you believe we even have one that's around this planet?
A frequency what?
A frequency fence, maybe a fence that's designed to kind of block people from higher consciousness or run a scrambling signature to interfere with people's spiritual design?
Oh, yeah, I do. I think I've experienced that when I worked on a project that was going to use the Earth's frequency to generate electricity. And I was, I don't know if it was psychotronically or just psychically, but I was attacked. And that went on for a couple of weeks. And I know it wasn't just me, because my girlfriend experienced the same thing, and my partner experienced the same thing. And it was the same looking type figures were in our dreams, and our dreams were disturbed at the same time. And then there was like the men in black that would show up at our houses, and it got to the point where we put up security systems and surveillance.
Wow.
And got footage of these people.
You actually have footage? Is it a real physical matrix, or is it something from an interdimensional space? Or what does it look like?
No, they were human.
Ah, so spooks chasing you down. Do you think it sounds like psychotronics to me?
Yeah.
Usually when it's something psychic, you can kind of block that quickly. Psychotronics I've run into where it's a little more difficult, a little more challenging to break away from. How did you actually get rid of that program that was attacking you, or whatever it was? What'd you do for it?
I made Faraday shielding.
Okay.
Which is it's a material that is really easy to come by. It's like chicken wire.
Okay.
But it's a finer mesh, and it's like chainmail from the medieval knights. And I just put that up in certain places, and it blocks any kind of electronic signal.
Nice. So is it actually? Okay, go ahead.
I can't call in. I can't call out.
Yeah, I like that. You have to come to my house and redesign it. So, so the chainmail, what is it made of? What kind of metal are we talking about here?
It's aluminum.
Aluminum. Okay. I would think that you'd get better reception with that. No?
Well, aluminum, stainless steel, it doesn't matter as long as it's conductive. Copper would be the best. Copper or brass. Yeah,
I like copper. For sure.
So did Tesla.
Okay, so the copper, does that absorb the transmission? How does it operate? So say they're attacking you and you have a Faraday cage. What exactly is the copper doing?
The copper is it's absorbing the energy.
Okay.
And then you have to ground it. Okay. So you have the grounding is the key part. So you have to get an 8-foot copper rod. You can get them at Home Depot or Lowe's, and then you get a fence post hammer, and then you hammer that baby down in the ground, and you put some rock salt and some charcoal about 3 foot down around the copper rod, and smash that down real good, and then you get a wire, and a nice thick gauge wire, and you hook that up to your Faraday cage.
And is this done on the exterior of the house or inside?
What's that?
Is it from the inside of the house or the exterior of the house? Where does this go up?
Well, I had mine in both.
Okay.
So I did mine in a fashion to where it looked like a curtain.
Cool.
It looked like curtains, so it didn't look like I had all this weird stuff, in my home.
Right. That's excellent. Yeah, that's good. Good information there. I'm going to have to be playing around at Home Depot now.
Oh, yeah.
Some extra stuff around here. I'm usually pretty good about keeping my shield up, but I'm kind of like an internal machine anyway. But very good information on that.
But you can put them in the walls. You can put them in the ceiling. If you got crawl space, you can put them up in there. And that's also good from satellite beam technology.
Okay. Very good. I'll have to remember that. So the aluminum foil really doesn't work, but aluminum does, apparently, right?
Yeah, but you can't ground it.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
And you don't really want to be seen walking around with the foil hat on.
Just doing a radio check on the station. Okay, we're back. I think we're back. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about all sorts of cool stuff, so you never know. You guys, I'm sure you guys can hear me. I just need a radio check from the chat or somebody. Okay, thank you. All right, we're good. All right.
So, like I was saying, it's very hard to find a black cat in a dark room.
I love that.
Especially if there is no cat.
There you go.
And all of the exotics, so to speak, are no longer at S4. Well, first of all, they were never at Area 51. Area 51 was a perfect smoke screen, and it served its purpose. But 15 miles southwest of Area 51 is Papoose Dry Lake Bed, and that's a base called S4. And that's where the hangars are, and that's where the exotics are.
And can you elaborate on exotics? What do you classify as an exotic, for example?
Us and theirs.
Okay.
Technology.
Okay. Now, would you say that technology is actually something that we've stolen from them, or is it something that was given to them?
It was an exchange program, from what I've been told by Bob Lazar.
Okay, and you believe that's true?
Yeah.
Okay.
And to clarify things on Bob, Bob's a man of science. He's not a UFO guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the same way. You know, I looked at UFOs and studied it as a case study, and like I was a prosecutor, and I was trying to debunk the whole UFO community and the sightings. And Bob's worse than I am. You know, he's a real critic when it comes to stuff like that. And he's a true man of science. Mm-hmm. He's not a UFO guy. So when he tells me stuff, I believe him.
Right. Okay. That's very interesting. So insofar as, I think I gave you a brief kind of description insofar as where I've been with the covert technology, but what is your take on synthetic telepathy, and what is your impression about the technology itself?
I don't know enough to give you a qualified answer.
Okay.
But I can tell you that there have been some pretty strange things that I've been exposed to, and things that I can't explain lightly.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there, well, let's just say it's not that I know, it's that I really feel that there are humans and possibly other life forms that use extra telepathy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Extrasensory telepathy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay. Good enough. Okay. So what is your most recent invention? I guess it's that recent Tesla coil, or is that your most recent invention?
My most recent invention was a robot.
A robot?
Yeah. Cool. I made a little humanoid robot. It's head, legs, arms, spine. It does everything. It's a completely, fully articulated humanoid robot. And it's got eyes. It's got obstacle memory. So if it bumps into something, it'll remember where it was and then avoid it in the future.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That sounds really neat. I need one of those. Does it clean your house?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it could. It uses a similar technology that the vacuum cleaner does, the little robotic vacuum cleaner.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't know if they've invented this or not, but I keep thinking that for people who are blind, I think that, their canes with sensors. I don't know why they don't create sensors for canes for people who are blind, so that they can it can tell them where to go, right, left, or whatever direction. Do you know if they've manufactured anything like that?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I have, because I am 40% blind in my left eye and 80% blind in my right eye.
Wow, I didn't even know that. Talk about synchronicity. So did you develop something like that?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah,
awesome.
Out of necessity. And the same thing for the the carcinotron, that anti-cancer device.
Mm-hmm.
I came up with that because in 1998 I was diagnosed with small cell pulmonary carcinoma.
Wow.
And I had a dream that woke me up, and it was Ella Fitzgerald in the old Memorex commercial. Is it live or is it Memorex? And she hits a note with her voice, and she shatters a champagne. I woke up, and then the light went on in my head that's resonant frequency. That Ella Fitzgerald, she resonated her voice to match the frequency of that champagne glass, but she didn't have the amplitude to shatter it. So that's why they recorded it on tape and played it back through an amplifier.
Right.
And the speakers could handle the amplification, and her voice already carried the note, so it matched the harmonic frequency that holds together the molecules of the champagne glass, and it shattered it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, hey, why don't I get someone, and I already had a few doctor friends, I had an oncologist buddy of mine give me and email it to me. So I modified a Tesla coil very drastically, and I made a receiver tuned to that frequency.
Excellent.
Wow. So it as far as it's concerned, energy of lightning just wants to get to the opposite charge. Mm-hmm. It just wants to get to ground. And now, if you have something that's close to the same frequency that's high up, mm-hmm. The lightning will actually go out of its way to go hit that target.
Right.
Just because it's inviting to it.
Mm-hmm. And how do you find the right frequency? I mean, how do you find the right frequency to destroy cancer cells? I mean, what are you looking for? How do you intuitively find those?
Well, I have the frequency generator, which it starts at 0 hertz, and then it goes all the way up in the megahertz. And he had the electron microscope, so I just had him he punched in, 0 hertz and went up into the megahertz and did a slow spectrum sweep, and it just goes boo. And then when the tissue sample started to break apart through the electron microscope, I had him give me the frequency. So then I modified the transmitter, the modified coil to that frequency, and then the receiver to that frequency. And then I put a good ground to it. And so it's like playing billiards. Let's say the cancer cell is a rack of billiard balls, and the electrons is the cue ball. Mm-hmm. And I'm racking I'm hitting the rack of billiard balls with my cue ball, and even if I miss cue and I knock 1 or 2 molecules out of their cancer cells sockets, that's just enough for the body's natural immunity system to identify it, because cancer is a chameleon disease.
Right.
It acts like it belongs there, and the immunity system lets it I can't even speak.
Oh, you're doing fine.
It lets it proliferate, and
that's interesting.
It attacks it, and I wait a day or 2 in between the treatments, so the body's immunity system will take out the trash, and then I hit it again.
Awesome. It's incredible. That's just amazing. I was going to ask you, is this patented? Do you have your patents?
Yes.
Okay, good. So nobody can take those from you, right? Right?
What's that?
So nobody can take any of those. They can't take your patents from you, correct?
No. Mm-mm.
Good. Okay. I just want to make sure, because I think that that's just so significant. I mean, it may not seem like it is to you, but I'll tell you what, if you can do what you're communicating, that's phenomenal, and it's something that's like miracle work. So, yeah, that's incredible to me. there's so many people who are suffering from cancer. I mean, and think about it. Think about how many people have been taken out by cancer. My goodness.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think that this device can work on a lot of other things just besides cancer.
Right.
You know, like another good chameleon disease or bad chameleon disease is AIDS.
Mm-hmm. Huh. Oh, that's interesting. Jerry, you need to send me a contact request and you can come on in. No, hang on just a second here. No, go ahead. I'm just trying to get Jerry in here. There's somebody trying to call in. But are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All righty.
So is it question and answer time?
Well, I had a few people trying to call in, and I couldn't get Jerry on here, but I think I added him to my contacts, so I think he can come in, or he should be able to. Anyways, okay. So how are you holding up? All right?
Yeah, I'm doing
good.
Fine.
Excellent. I really appreciate you being on. I'm going to tell you point blank, you're going to have to come back because I have so many questions for you. So at some point in the continuum, when you decide you have time, I want you to come back here, okay?
Oh, okay.
And give me updates on what's happening in your world with all your inventions and all that cool stuff. So you said you were contracted with the Air Force. I don't know if you can even talk about it, but what exactly did you do, if you can talk about it?
I worked on a virtual reality interface with fighter jets for the Red Flag.
Okay.
And you know what the Red Flag is?
If you can elaborate for our audience, that'd be good.
Red Flag is simulated battle.
Mm-hmm.
And they get the best of the best, and then they go out and they do simulated battles in different types of theaters of war, different scenarios. And I interfaced the cameras they had on board of the aircraft into the threat alert room, which is like a giant theater with multiple monitors, and a bunch of generals and colonels and bigwigs sit in this giant theater, and in the armrest they can punch up any fighter to any monitor in the threat alert room, and then they can communicate to anybody from wherever they're at.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I did that about 23 years ago.
Oh my goodness! Wow. So now obviously they don't use headsets anymore, and maybe you're not familiar with that or not. But a lot of the things they're doing with virtual reality, or you did with virtual reality, they've been upgrading to more of an interconnected communication system where you don't need a headset. In other words, it's a signal. Does that make sense to you? Okay, so because that's some of the stuff that I've been exposed to, and that's why I'm mentioning it. So I just wanted to. I think Jerry Bear's trying to get a hold of me, but Jerry Bear, you can call in if you want. So people keep texting me while I'm talking to you, anyways. But is there anything in particular? Let's run your book again. Mention your book one more time so people can get a hold of it.
Understanding Tesla coils. Everything that you need to know.
Excellent, and that's on Amazon.com. Okay, and then there's your website as well. And are you taking clients now? Are you treating many people for the cancer? How many do you take a clientele list or a list of clientele? Or?
Yeah, I am, but I want to make it clear that this hasn't been approved by the AMA,
right,
or the FDA, and I'm not making any claims to it as a cure for anything.
Right. Yeah, they make you say that. I know.
Yeah, I just have to say that.
No, I get it. I have a friend who, I don't know if you're familiar with the, it used to be called the Vibe machine, and now it's the Quantum Pulse machine, and I've used that. And that's Tesla coils also, but it does, are you familiar with that?
Yeah, and here's the problem with those devices. It's like the Royal Rife device. Are you familiar with the Rife device?
Yeah, Rife medicine, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Now, see, they're right about the frequencies, but they don't have the amplitude, like I was talking about the power, the oomph,
right,
to penetrate the conductor, being the body. So they have the frequency, which would be great for some kind of melon problem, something wrong with their skin, like a carcinoma on their arms or legs or something. But as far as anything inside the body, like a liver or hearts or lungs, it simply can't penetrate the body because it just. Remember when I was talking about the higher the frequency, the less penetrative effects it has?
Right.
So high frequencies want to ride over the skin, over the surface, and lower frequencies want to penetrate.
Wow.
Well, unfortunately, all the frequencies that are cancer-related are higher frequencies. So you have to have a lot of amplitude. And, I have a machine that generates 60 amps, and a half an amp will kill you. Wow.
That's amazing. So how do you generate the amplitude? You probably covered this already, but could you cover it again for a sec?
I use a pole pig transformer. If you look on the telephone poles and you see those big drums, those big gray drums,
right,
with the high voltage power lines coming out of them, that's what I use.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's serious. I got about almost $200,000 into the device.
Holy cow, that's amazing. How long have you had the device?
I've made improvements on it, but I started on it in 1999.
Oh my goodness! Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, this is incredible. Do your patients have to sit, or do they lie down, or how does that work?
They mostly sit.
Do they? Okay, so it doesn't really matter, does it?
No.
Okay. Wow.
No, because the receiver I have configured for both sitting down or standing up.
That's excellent. So what do you think about the ultra-low frequency that they use to, that's kind of like a psychotronic assault weapon too, but there's another deployment of that. So what's your take on their transmissions with ultra-low frequency?
Oh yeah, the ELF waves, they can do all sorts of stuff and make people have burning effects of their skin, because what it does is it superheats the water molecules in your dermal layers, and it makes you feel like you're burning. And in a sense, you are. You're the water that's in the upper layers of your skin are being evaporated,
right.
And it hurts. It hurts bad.
I mean, it's basically, isn't it like non-reversible? I mean, once they do this kind of damage, is there a way to heal it?
Oh, it heals itself right away.
Oh, it does. So this isn't permanent damage, what they do?
No.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that. So that makes a big
difference.
But
it depends on how long they use it on somebody.
Uh-huh.
Because if they leave it on for more than 15 seconds, it's going to do some damage.
Okay. So short term. That's really interesting. I know there's a lot of that going on right now. What's your take on the HARP? I know a lot of people say it's used for mind control and mass collective control. Do you think there's a potential for that, or?
HARP, I'm trying to think of the guy's name who's the real chief on that.
Was it Nick Bishik, or not him?
Bielik.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, Al Bielik?
No,
Nick,
that's
right?
not his name. Nick Begich.
Yeah,
Nick
okay.
Begich.
That's the name I can never pronounce.
Yeah, Nick Begich. He's really the number one guy on that.
Right,
but it can't do mind control, but it can do mass behavior control. Like it can make a bunch of people want to go out and buy stuff, be more thrifty, or obsessive compulsive, or just be irritated. And if they're irritated, they're going to be on edge, and then they're going to want to fight each other, or love each other, or whatever. It's more of a mood altering instead of mind control.
Right, that's what I get.
Kill this person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as far as behavioral control, it was never designed for that. It was mostly designed for weather control and being able to map the earth for oil deposits and gold deposits because it can see underground and underwater.
How far can it see? Do you know what the depth is?
It's pretty deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, there's nothing hidden in this world when it comes to technology like that.
Yeah, it knows where everything's at.
Isn't that interesting? There's so much that's not revealed to the masses on mainstream, and I'm sure they have everything covered and mapped and cataloged and everything else. That's really mind-blowing.
I'd like to know more about these mermaids. Have you seen anything on TV, on the Animal Planet and the National Geographic?
No, I don't watch television, but there's something about mermaids.
Oh my gosh!
Tell me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. The Navy did some ultrasonic ELF, or I should say infrasonic tests that beached hundreds of whales off the coast of Washington, and they two kids found a mermaid, and then the Navy got there and they cordoned off the area, and they got the two kids, and they told them that what they saw was a seal and blah blah blah, and then there's a group of people from the oceanic, it's the OSSB. They had found the bleep, or the bloop. It's called the bloop signal, and it was a whole different language, a very complex language that was communicating with dolphins and was swimming with whales. And they were called to South Africa, and they found the shark, and the fishermen said the shark isn't what's interesting. It's the spears. There's a bunch of spears going in and out of the shark, and they opened up the shark, and they found they found a mermaid.
Wow.
And they found a spear. I mean a spear that had a stingray barb as its point.
That's wild. Do you
Yeah.
think that's for real? You think it's legit?
No, I think it's for real. I mean, and then the African police came in. They seized everything. And then 8 months later, they did some testing. It was an oil refinery company that was doing a survey, and they found the bloop signal, and they played back the bloop signal, and they played it back underwater speakers, and a mermaid showed up and touched the glass of the submarine.
Wow.
And it's all on footage. They got it all on tape.
I'll have to check that out. Look into that.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
interesting.
Yeah, Google it. It's all over Google.
I was going to ask you, well, actually, we're getting ready to wrap this up real quick. Let me make a little announcement here before we close this off. But I just want to thank you for being on the show, Mark. It's been incredible to have you on tonight. I'm really blessed that you showed up. So I want you to come back, okay? So make sure you do that. Find time to get you on here. And keep me informed about your research and any breakthroughs you might have, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure, let me tell you. I wanted to thank everybody for tuning in tonight, everybody in the chat room, the listeners, and the callers that tried to get in. We've had some technical issues, not too bad. I think it was reset. The server was reset. So please join me next week when my special guest will be Bernie Mendez. And stay tuned for Shiny Side Out with David Dunger and Becky coming up next, of course, to sail you on into the night from down under. So we do have some time left here in the Illusion of Time. And I was going to ask you, This may be just out there, but I wanted to ask you, are you familiar with magnetite?
Magnetite?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so and supposedly we have magnetite in our own structure inside our bodies. Is that correct?
Yeah, we got it in our brains.
Okay, what is your take on that?
It is from our older selves. There's what do they call it? Vestition, I think, is the word used to describe things, organs, and like our little toe that we really don't use anymore, or like our coccyx. We don't use it anymore, but we still have it as our evolutionary past. And we have magnetite in our brain for location.
Okay. That's what I thought. There's something about that really rings true for me, and I don't know why I had to mention it, but I felt guided to. We have a caller here. We're getting ready to wrap up the show, but caller 816, go ahead. You there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi.
I was curious, have you been exposed to anything on the Lucifer telescope at Mount Graham? Have you?
No.
Okay. That's the telescopes run by the Vatican? I
haven't.
Yeah, I'm just curious if you had any experience with that. Oh, okay.
No. What's the scoop?
Well, you were talking about with UFOs and stuff, and my thoughts have always been that they've been heavily invested, the Vatican has, with research in that. And I always thought that probably we won't get anything out of the government, but it'll probably come from the Catholic Church, is where the UFO disclosure will happen. Is what I
I think you might be right there. It would probably have to come from a humanitarian source than a governmental department.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I mean, they'll probably come up and say, people have been giving confessions for years about being abducted, and they've got all kinds of evidence on it. There's things on that.
Yeah.
Do you have a chat room?
We do have a chat room.
What's the location?
It's in Revolution Radio. Let's see. Well, if you go into Revolution Radio at www.freedomslips.com, you can go into the chat room. Yeah. And you'll see it. We're in Studio A. But you can just go in and you'll be able to get in there real quick. We're getting ready to wrap this up. Well, I want to thank you for calling, caller 816. Do you want to tell us your name?
I'll hang out in the chat room for a little bit.
Well, we're not signing off yet. We have a few more minutes, mister.
Oh, okay. All right.
Did you have any other question, 816?
No, I'll go ahead and post a link in the chat room.
Okay, sounds great. Okay.
And you can check it out from there.
Great. Thanks for calling.
Sure thing.
Oh, thanks.
Bye. Yeah, we're almost, we actually have a few more minutes, Mark, but you're welcome to always go into the chat room while you're on air, and also later on. So, yeah.
Was it Schedule A?
Yeah. Well, actually, if you just go in, where am I? Yeah, just go into are you in on the screen where it says Studio A, Studio B, and all that good stuff? You'll see where it says chat. Just go into the chat, and you can either pick a name or just click. I'm sure they'd love to talk to you in there.
Policy,
go ahead.
Chat links.
Just go into the chat itself. Should be one.
I don't see it.
Okay.
I see Studio A, click here.
Right.
Studio B, click here. And then homepage, Hawk's Nest, Schedule A, Schedule B.
Back out of there and go to the main one because you should be able to find chat. Anyway, well, get in there afterwards. I was going to ask you anything on Comet Ison?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, that's okay. No, I was going to ask you if you have any thoughts on Comet Ison coming in.
No. Oh.
Okay, I'm just curious.
I don't know what that is.
Really? Okay, well, something coming in.
Yeah.
You might want to. I'll just let you Google it, and you let me know what you think about it. Look up Comet Ison and tell me what you think. We won't go into the details right now, but supposedly it's supposed to bring some changes in the next few months, but we'll see. So, anything else you want to cover real quick? We've got about a few more minutes here, but is there anything else you wanted to bring up? What's your take on technology down the road? Like, say, maybe 10 years from now. What do you think? Where do you think we're heading?
Well, I'm afraid to say it, but I think we're going to be becoming more separated than we have in the past, meaning like, you know, everybody would rather chat right now than to pick up the phone and call somebody.
Right.
You know, and I think that, you know, we got people that are separating themselves from everybody else in their own little island they call a home. And I hate to see it, but it just seems that we're becoming more and more isolationist.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, maybe desensitized too on some levels, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it seems to me that's happening as well. There's a lot of detachment going on from more of a spiritual design, but more of a sensitive design too, insofar as just tuning into bigger energies, you know, beyond what we see in the regular matrix of life. So I do see that also. That's interesting that you perceive it the same way. So what is your take on the technological side? I mean, insofar as all this misuse of technology with black budget or government cabals, do you think that's ever going to change?
Oh, I doubt it.
Yeah. I think it's just going to get more and more extreme?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of unfortunate. My goodness. Are you in the chat room?
No, I'm trying to find the chat room.
Okay, because I'm hearing some feedback, and I know that you need to click on whatever it is you clicked on. Oh,
yeah.
All right.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Okay, I found chat links.
Okay, well, we're heading out of here right now, so I just want to thank you for being on the show again. If you want to go into chat, feel free to go ahead and go in there. Well, actually, I'll tell you how to get in there when we get off the air. But thank everybody.
Okay.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight, and I will see you next week. Okay, have a good weekend, everybody.
Listening to Revolution Radio.